It's time to do some fruit tree pruning. It's a little early, but it's been so warm that all these buds are just swelling up now. So I want to take you guys through how I'm going to prune my smaller trees. For this, I got my Felco 8 pruners. I'll leave a link in the description for these. I have an old sock to use as a rag to clean them, and I have some isopropyl alcohol. In between trees, we have to disinfect so we're not going to transfer any disease. So let's start out with this plum tree. I planted this tree last year. It was pretty small. None of these branches were here. They were just little stubs. So you can see we put on a lot of growth just in 1 year, which is good. So before we start looking into the shape of this tree, I'm going to go through right away any diseased branches or any branches that are growing towards the center. Gotta go. For plum trees, we want to do the vase shape where it's going out like an upside down umbrella. So right away, I come in here. Here is the center of my tree. I want that clear. Look at this big branch right here, growing from here into the center. Gonna make a big cut right there. Get that guy out. Over here, we got a nice split coming off this branch that comes out real nice. But this one is growing too far into the center. It's gonna get shaded out by this branch and possibly these. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take that one out. That was an easy one. We didn't have a lot of branches that were growing inward. No diseased branches. So now I want to focus on shape. So we want the umbrella shape to this. And a lot of this lower growth here is not going to be necessary. You can see here we got a really nice shape coming out right here. These are going to be my 4 main branches. We got this really nice one that comes out low right here and goes up. Nice shape, but I have a deer problem here, so I want to start a little bit higher with my branches that go out. So even though this is a really nice branch right there, we're gonna get rid of it. Another little guy coming out right here, get rid of that. So here's our main branches heading up here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. This guy coming out right there, I could take that off. And you know what? I'm gonna look at this. That must be some deer damage right there. So we are gonna get rid of that one. These little guys, they are gonna get shaded out. We're just gonna take those out. Got another little guy right there. We're cleaned up all the way to here. We're nice and open in our center like we wanna be. So now let's focus on our branches heading out. We'll start at the bottom here. This guy. Coming out like this, branching out, pretty decent shape. I actually want this to start going up a little bit, but we're gonna fix that in a little bit. Now look here. Now I do have this blemish here. I don't know what's going on with that, but just because this is a good shape, I'm gonna leave it for this year and I'm gonna watch this. So I think right now we're done with this branch till we come back and do some cuts at the tip. Going here. We come up, this is where it was pruned last year. We got a nice branch coming up here and a nice branch going out that way. A nice V-split. That's what we're looking for. This little guy, don't need him. Over here, coming up, nice V-split. And then we got these little guys down low. Those are gonna get shaded out. We're gonna get rid of those. So we've cleaned out everything down low here. We got these branches set with their nice splits going. So the final step here is gonna come back to these really long branches here, and we're gonna end up snipping some of these back. Not too much. Maybe I'll take a little more off some of the longer ones, but I'm gonna wanna show you here where exactly I'm gonna cut, because the buds are gonna determine it. So when we come and we give it a little snip here, that's gonna encourage some of the buds right below it to start splitting out. So when we're doing this, we're trying to plan for next year's growth. Like if we cut it here, we might get a nice fork there. So let's just start with this guy here. Got a real nice V going out. This one is gonna grow up this way in the wide open. It's gonna be really nice. This one's already real nice. So this little guy, I'm just gonna look for a nice, healthy, outward facing bud. And I'm just gonna give it a little snip right above it. Kind of hard to see it there, but this bud here, when it grows, is going to grow the direction the bud is facing. So it is going to come out this way. As for this long one here, the plums don't like being cut back too much. So even though I'd like to even these out, I'm not gonna do it this year because I want all this foliage in here to help build this root system. I'm not too worried about fruiting at this point. So I'm just gonna go back and you can see where the growth started down here. I'm gonna take it a little less than a third back. So I'm looking up here. I got a real nice outward facing bud right there. Same thing with this branch coming out here. That came in here. I'm gonna go ahead and, since we're a little naked this way, I'm actually gonna make this one branch out a little this way. So I'm gonna find a bud kind of pointing this way. Same thing, maybe a little less than a third down, and just give it a snip. Go around and just cut the tip off. All these guys on the outside here. And right here, see we got a little extra space this way versus that way. So let's find a bud that's angled a little bit towards me here and not exactly straight out. And that's a good one right there. Nice tall one here. Let's try to get this thing growing a little bit of an angle this way. Since this one is a lot bigger, I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it a snip right there. And then this is the biggest one coming up. This one I'm gonna take a little bit more off of it. So I'm gonna follow her up. Got a decent gap here. It'd be nice if we cut it and we got a nice split going in here. So a little bit further back than the rest. We're gonna go ahead and give her a snip. And that's gonna be it for this plum. We didn't take too much off of it. Some people like to keep their trees really small. This is already a dwarf plum. It's gonna grow to maybe 10 feet tall or so. And like I said, I wanna keep them a little bit higher up to stay away from the deer. And I want extra foliage on this because that's gonna build the root system. Now let's go over and take a look at an apple tree I planted last year, because that's gonna take a little bit different shape than this plum. I cleaned my pruners, so we're ready to go. Here I have a golden delicious apple I planted last year, and it grew kind of funky. The deer did come in and help prune this back for me during the summer, so we got a lot of weird side growth going on here. Now when it comes to pruning apple trees, we're gonna prune it to a central leader. Unlike the plums or the peaches I'm gonna show you that we want to have that upside down umbrella, the vase shape, with the apples, we want it to have this central leader where we have one main stem that goes up and continues. So on this tree, it's right here. Ideally, I'm gonna want a situation like this where I have these side branches coming out, and then I want it to be kind of clean through here and then have more side branches coming out. But look at this guy right here, growing up at a crazy angle. I'm gonna make a huge decision with this. I'm going to make my side branches start out right over here. So I have this one, and I'd love to have this one. Maybe we could train it, but you know what? We're not gonna mess with it. So I'm gonna go ahead, same thing I did with the plum. I'm gonna come in through here. I'm gonna take out some of these lower branches. Just gonna go ahead and decide that this guy is no longer necessary. This one, and then with one larger cut, we're gonna take this whole guy out close to the collar right there and just give her a snip. And I'm gonna save this and cut it up because I'm probably gonna try grafting it to the crabapple trees just to see what happens. This is gonna be my new set of side branches here. 1, 2, 3, and you know what? Let's just leave number 4 for this year to see what happens. They got pretty decent spacing. This is a little close, but just like the plum, we want some extra leaves on here to get a good root system going. Side branch is set. Let's move up here. I want a nice open area here. It's gonna help the air flow through here. Nice open area here before we start our next set, which has already began. So let's go ahead, take a look here. Got this branch coming out at a really awkward angle. That's south, so the sun is not gonna be hitting it. It's no use to me. Get them out. Couple little buds in here. I'm not even gonna cut them. I'm just gonna take my finger and just scrape those off. Moving up, here is my central leader that we talked about. Here is my side growth that's gonna stay. So our main shape of this tree is complete. Now, just like the plum, we're gonna go back, we're gonna work on each of these branches separately. Starting with this little guy, it's got a bud right there, so it's gonna grow like this. That'll be good. Let's give that a snip. We want that to stay around the same place and keep going up. So I got a nice outward facing bud right there. So let's get rid of that. This bigger guy right here has a bud coming out right there. Let's go ahead and give it a snip right above that bud. It's got this little guy growing off it, kind of a nice fork, but I want this to come out this way. So there's a nice bud there facing right at me. So hopefully that'll grow in this pocket. And over to this last one, I got a bud facing that way, bud facing that way. This one is gonna come out right there. I think that'll do it. Let's go ahead and snip that. Moving up to our second set of branches here. Got this guy coming out. Just gonna go ahead to this outward facing bud. Continue growing out this way. I got this guy here. I kind of want this to go a little that way. So I got a nice bud right there that'll do it. Not taking too much off. Some people chop these down a lot. They don't need to stay too small outside here. And this is a dwarf anyway. Here's our final task right here. This is our main leader. You can see where it comes up. You can follow it straight up. It was pruned right here last year. This bud took off, growing nice and straight. I really like that. It does have a little lean this way. So I'm gonna try to bring her back straight here. So all I'm gonna do is, this bud right here is kind of at an angle here. It'll help straighten this out if I just give it a snip right there. There's one more little bud right there that I missed. A little hard one. Let's go ahead and get her off of there. Little fruiting spur, gone. All right, so we're a little cluttered over here, but that's gonna be fine for this year. We can do some summer pruning too. I like the shape. We're done with this apple. One of the things with pruning trees is if you are unsure about your cuts, you don't have to make the cuts. You can always come back later and fix it. You just don't want to come back when it's too big and make any drastic cuts. With this apple tree done, let's move over to the peaches, and then I'll probably come back, and if you guys want, I'm going to prune the rest of my trees, and I'll just talk while I'm making cuts. Maybe it'll help someone out just watching it in different situations. But I wanted to get the basics of pruning young plum, apple, and peach trees out of the way in case some people don't want to stick around and watch me prune trees. All right, I got this little peach tree right here. I'm going to take this deer guard out of the way. It didn't help much because the deer just reached right over and they pruned a lot of these branches for me. So we got a lot of extra side growth because of that. So just like the plum tree, we're looking for that upside down umbrella vase shape with this. And for the most part, we're pretty good here. There is some cleaning up to do. So we're gonna start out the same way we start out with everything. Anything that is growing inwards has to go. So looking at this tree, everything is pretty good, except for I got this one guy growing straight up right here. So let's go ahead and get rid of that first. As for diseased branches, nothing really diseased. I got this little guy I can clip off right there. For the most part, everything looks pretty good. Now we start looking at our shape. We want an open center, which we pretty much have, and we want our side branches coming out, which we have pretty good here. I'm not a huge fan of these two coming out in the same spot here. We might take care of that one. But before we do that, so this is where all my side branches start. I got this one that grew really strong, but look how it comes out. It's so close to the tree and it's tight, it just does not have a good angle to it. Even if I bend this thing, it's still close here. So we're gonna make a drastic cut right here. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna just cut that guy right there. So at least for this year, this is gonna be our shape here. We have 1, 2, 3, and for now, we're gonna keep this. But in the future, this guy's probably gonna go away. So assessing our shape here, I'm gonna come over to what I think looks pretty good right now. Got a nice angle on this branch. We got a nice split going on. Don't need this in the center there. Get rid of that. Got a nice split going on right there. This one's growing a little straight up, but we're gonna fix that when we come back and clip these to the outer buds. But let's work around this way. So right here, deer damage. They bit the tip off here. I got this big open area here, so I am fine with a bud that points a little bit up this way, and we have one right there. So let's just go ahead and give that a snip right there, so this can branch out and V right there. Got this guy here. Let's just go ahead and take this one to an outside facing bud. Got more deer damage right here. So this bud is gonna go a little that way. Let's just take this one. Let's just cut off the deer damage on this one. Right there. And this one, let's try to send this one out this way, because we're gonna have a gap here. And like I said, I think this one's going away. It's all about making these cuts, looking at where the bud is at, knowing it is going to grow out from that direction. So when people tell you to cut to the outward facing bud, that's not always true. Sometimes you can use the buds to your advantage to make this grow where you want to grow, to fill this in. Those are looking real nice there. Let's go back to this guy that's growing a little vertical. I don't like the vertical grow. I want this thing to start coming out this way. So let's go ahead and we're gonna cut this back all the way to here, just so it can start coming out right there. We don't want too much vertical growth. Right next to it, nice split on this branch. I like that. So let's just go ahead and take that one to an outward facing bud. Same with this guy that we might get rid of for now. Let's get a nice bud facing outwards. Cut it right above. So nothing too crazy here, just trimming stuff back to help it grow the direction we want it to grow, keeping the center nice and open. That is the gist of the plums, apples, and peaches. I'm gonna keep going here. I got a peach next to this one that is a mess that we're gonna have to clean up. But I'm just gonna go through now and in no particular order, just start pruning some trees and talk as I'm doing it. Real messy one here. I'm just gonna talk out loud and go pretty quick. Sometimes it helps to talk out loud. People might think you're crazy, but just going through the steps in order. So right away, dead and diseased. I got dead branch there, dead branch there. That one's dead. That one's dead. Got a dead one here. Little dead guy there. All right, now branches growing inwards. This guy right here doesn't look good. Growing inwards, get him out. Got this little guy here. You get him out. Little branch on the inside there, get him out. We have a branch crossing. This is growing right into this other one. We can get that out. A little nurple right there growing in. Let's get that out. There's some drastic cuts coming our way, but sometimes it just helps to go through here and thin it out a little bit, just so you can see everything a lot better. So like, look what I got here. I got this branch coming out. It's almost touching this branch next to it. I don't like that. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a snip. You're gonna see that cut I just made could have been handled with one big drastic cut. Because as I look at this now, I am clear all the way up here. Here's one of my branches coming out, nice looking branch. Little steep here, but that one looks pretty good. What I don't like is right here. Look at this vertical that we missed. Let's get that one out. So check this out. This guy coming up and out there, we are just too vertical right there. I don't like it. We're gonna make a drastic cut here. We're gonna keep this just to 3 main branches coming out. I'm gonna do it with one really big cut right here. And that's why these Felcos are so nice. You can go through some really thick branches with these. All right, now unfortunately we're a little naked on this side. We got a lot of growth on this side. We're gonna try to coax some of this back that way. But before we do, I am looking right here. So let's go ahead and do a little more cleanup working this way. Keeping this branch here. It's got some of these side ones coming out. Don't want to take too much off this tree this year. But I look up here, I don't really need this one coming out. Let's get rid of that. While I'm here, let's get a bud to bring her back this way. Going in there. Start putting a little extra weight on this side of the tree. These are gonna get shaded out a little bit, but I don't want to take too much off this tree here. Don't think I'm gonna mess around with this year. I'm gonna let this leaf out, see what happens. I am just going to clip this back a little bit, get some of the deer damage off. Clip them here. Maybe this will grow in and fill in this gap here. Deer damage, get that off there. Nice bud coming out here, fill in this area. So I'm gonna leave it like that. It's a little ugly right now, but what I'm hoping is this branch here, how it kind of splits this way, hopefully we can just keep coaxing it to grow this way with years of pruning and maybe even this out. Maybe same thing with this guy here. At some point this will probably go away and hopefully this one will take over. And we're gonna fill this canopy out. But for now, we're gonna leave it, let her leaf out, use that energy to build a better root system. We're not gonna rush it. They're not all beautiful. Got a couple apple trees in the garden here. We have the Liberty apple. It's looking pretty good. A nice shape coming up here. We do get overhead sun, so this branch is fine for this year. It's gonna get some sun. This is gonna be a little different because of where this tree's at. So you can see this one is growing in technically, but that's still not too bad. Got a little blemish there. We're gonna leave that and see what happens. This already looks like the bud's coming out in a good spot. You got this little guy right here that was a little dead. Get rid of that. This guy's dead. Get rid of that. Other than that, I think I'm gonna leave this just the way it is. We have our central leader. We have these 3 branches coming out, comes up, and now we have 4 branches we're working with. Now, I need to pick one of these to be my new central leader. And since this one is growing the most vertical, this is gonna be my new central leader. So I'm just gonna leave this, and it already has this coming up here. I'm gonna let that continue to grow straight up. I'm gonna keep this as one of my side branches, and we'll see what happens next year. Decent shape on that one. We have an Arkansas black apple here. We're gonna go through there. I see this one branch is dead. Get that one out. Nothing really growing in here that we have to take out. Little dead guy right there, get out of there. What I will do down here, since we got a lot going on, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This guy right there, we're just gonna get you out. We're gonna leave this for now. Work our way up here. Don't need that little guy. Now there is our central leader coming up. We want this to continue up. Now this one looks like the better branch because it's going straight up, but if you look here, it's kind of coming off at a weird spot. That's gonna be a weak point as this grows up. So we're gonna keep this one here as the central leader. I am gonna go ahead and get rid of this guy. I'm gonna follow my central leader up, and since we're leaning a little this way, I want her to come back a little more this way. So I am going to cut at this bud that is facing towards me. So now it'll grow up a little bit like this. So it's not gonna be perfectly straight, but at least it'll be making its way a little closer to the center. Good, you know what? Go ahead and get rid of this little guy right here. That's in a bad spot. That will be shaded out. And this is going to be another one that, if anything, I'm probably just going to do some summer pruning to it. I'm going to see which way all this stuff wants to grow and just kind of thin it out as we go along. Now this one probably is going to give me some apples this year, so I will be thinning those out since it is a small tree, but I think we're going to get a couple apples on it. And the Liberty gave us apples last year. I got some Calamar trees over here that I'm probably not going to do much pruning to this year. I might cut a little of the side branches off. They gave us apples last year. I will give them a little snip here. I want to keep my leader coming up here. That's a nice one, so we're not going to need this guy. He's just growing too vertical. It's not helping out. And then this one, we don't have much side growth yet, and we're leaning a little this way, so let me just go ahead and give her an angled snip right above that bud right there. And let's get a nice leader coming up there and maybe get some side branches coming out this year. If you're curious about my apple trees from seed, I did end up putting one in my garden. It is probably about 3.5 feet tall right now, and I am going to prune this. I'm going to try to keep this guy real short, so I am going to cut it way back so the branches come low. I'm going to do that in a separate video just so I can show you my apple trees from seed. This has been my video on pruning. Hopefully it's not too boring. I just think it's fun going out there and just looking at a tree and trying to plan future growth just by looking at the buds and which way they go and trying to picture how the side branches are going to come out. Hope this helps, and thanks for watching.